Are we live? Yes. Heyo, y'all. Welcome to Gablash, a podcast based around conversing with the community about, whatever. Although I do imagine that this edition is going to be heavily featuring this weekend's live events, such as, Night of Champions, Double or Nothing Battleground. What's up, Austin? How goes it, fam? To the question you asked there in the chat before we went live. I'm not sure how many people cried. Honestly, I think a few people even rolled their eyes because, it just feels like they're going so far out of their way to make Sammy Guevara into this baby face after the whole Pam incident. It's kind of wild, to be honest. Second, while I'm making sure things are sorted up on my end here. But yeah, how goes it, Austin? What live wrestling did you catch this weekend? Did you catch all of it? It should have been me. This guy. Unfortunately, fam, it should have been a lot of people in their own opinions. But it's just the way the cookie crumbles, my friend. Don't worry, plenty of fish in the sea. But yeah, the leading topic today, I gotta say, is going to be Jade Cargill, because as it seems, literally minutes after her departure, well, not departure, after her defeat, it was announced that she's going to be taking some time off. Not really announced, it was reported that she'll be taking some time off, because it seems that she's going to be having a personality shift upon her return, and not for nothing, some well-deserved time off it is. I talked about it a little bit on the live reaction stream last night when I double-checked Five Select and saw that that was indeed something that had been reported literally minutes after I found out. But yeah, it's looking like this was a bit of a swan song for her, and I do have mixed feelings on the decision there. I think that it was a great moment, but moments are WWE's thing. I feel like AEW kind of stepped on their own toes a bit in having this random return title match. Now, don't get me wrong, like random return in straight into title match, winning the title thing. You see, there it is, us. A lot of people loved Chris winning. A lot of people loved Chris Statlander. A lot of people wanted her to take this belt for so long, Hey, Dara, how goes it, fam? We are just getting started with our first topic, and that's going to be Jade Cargill taking some time off. Currently, I'm airing a few grievances I have with the booking decisions made, because I do think that there was a way to achieve what we achieved here, but it very clearly seems like they're trying to keep Jade protected. This one loss was a very protected loss in that she literally wrestled a full-length match against an international talent in the form of Taya Valkyrie, literally right before. So this is fully on, you can even dare say Jade defeated Jade, not Chris Statlander. So does that hinder Statlander's moment a little bit? I'd say no, because I see a lot of people still so happy, so elated that she's here and champion now. For months, even back in last year, you had people being like, Chris Statlander's got to take that belt. And then she got injured, and people are like, oh, Jade's just going to hold down to that belt until Statlander comes back. And for months, it seemed like they weren't going to do that. But as time went on, it's like, are they? And then this Taya program popped up, and it felt like, wow, we really do have a legitimate contender in her. It's probably going to be her. And it wasn't, but it was Chris. We kind of just crammed all that together. Oh, you met Chris. Was she kind to you? Oh, you met Chris's BF. Ooh, interesting. One day you may learn some lore. I learned from our own Wrestle World. Apologies. Sorry. Seeing things. Not really caring to respond to them. Twitter notifications and such. So yes, Jade's looking to be taking some time off. I know Jesse. Yep, there you go, Dara. Those of us long-term members of this community know Jesse is not the biggest fan of Statlander, to say the least. But that is his bone to pick. I leave those gripes to him to take up with AEW and or the fan base. All I know is personally, I didn't want to wait until she came back just to give her the title, and that's what we did. So, egg on my face, right? Uh, One has to hope that she doesn't hold this title for 6+ months. But if she's going to be the Jade Conqueror, and not for nothing, Chris Statlander's pretty protected in her own right, because when you look to her last title match against Britt Baker, in fact, I believe that was the last time. Maybe she got another title match since then, but she challenged Britt Baker on pay-per-view sometime last year, maybe a little bit longer prior, and she is the only woman to not tap out to the jaw, to the lockjaw. She instead passed out. And the lockjaw is like, they've really put that over. That is one of the most dangerous submissions in the company. So there is that. But she still seemingly couldn't beat Jade fair and square by the standards of the booking. That's not me trying to rag on her as much as that's saying, like, we now don't know if Chris is outright better than Jade Cargill. But I will say they planted the seeds for this. They made this very clear. When Jade walked into her 58th match, she won, and then she was like, no, I'm gonna challenge somebody else right now. Bring somebody else down, and then wiped them out. Was at 59-0, beat 2 people back to back. So it's like, in her own mind, she established she can do this, and then she tried doing it after beating Taya. Another gripe I have is how both her and Taya have the same finish, and they effectively told us through the production of the match that Jade is stronger than Road to Valhalla, despite the fact that Taya has been using that move longer than Jade's been a wrestler. So that kind of stung to me a little. I hope that they keep Taya like on an incline, on an elevated plateau, because she's too big of a star. She has too much presence to just fall down the card after this. Now, granted, a lot of it's happened to Jade's former feuds before, but then you have Athena, who's now in Ring of Honor, becoming one of the greatest women's champions of the modern era. Maybe Chris was just going out to talk, but Jade got injured during the match. No. I will say you might be looking into it a little too deep. Because according to Fightful Select, this was the plan as far back as a few weeks ago, that Statlander was going to have a surprise return challenge for the title. And I think that's kind of why I pointed out how, I think it was on Rampage a few weeks ago, Jade did this whole back-to-back challengers thing to establish that that is something Jade will do. So it didn't feel as out of nowhere that she did it on the pay-per-view. But then again, you also have to look, then you can just analyze it a little bit deeper and be like, why was Statlander in her gear already? Did Statlander know this was coming? Like, you think about things like that, and most people don't. That's kind of my forte. I love looking at little nitpicky details. That's kind of like why Gablash is a thing, is because I like talking about little details like that. And she seemed like she was just so ready for the match, So, yeah, you could say this. You could say she anticipated Jade doing what she did. I don't know. Maybe you could say she anticipated just coming out and challenging, like coming face to face with the winner. I don't know. But there's definitely holes in the story here and there that I'm not too fond of, on top of the fact that it's impromptu title match resulting in title change. That's just not something AEW typically does. Now, to the other half of the thing you said, Austin, my opinion on NXT. I watched NXT late last night from like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. and that could have affected my enjoyment of the show, but I was having a hard time staying interested in it. And that's not to say like I was nodding off or anything. I was doing other things. I actually had to force myself to go to sleep at like 4 because I was going to stay up so much longer if I didn't, and I needed to have a reasonable start to my day today. With NXT, there wasn't much noteworthy. It was a good show. There was good wrestling. There was a few spots here and there that were a little iffy. I will say, Dragunov Dijak, that was an awesome match. That was an awesome match. Because they really did well in telling the story they were trying to tell. It got me uncomfortable in a few moments with how Dragunov was in the corner just wailing in pain from those kendo shots. That was a great spot. And, congrats to Tiffany for finally becoming champion. But a gripe that I saw another podcaster point out, she sets up to her for her finish too obviously. I mean, that's why she's taking a break. I'm probably looking deep into it. For the press conference of Double or Nothing, yeah, I feel that. This is the second time there was an impromptu title. Yeah, you're right, Dara. And you see, that one's a little bit more forgivable because the FTW title isn't a sanctioned belt, you know? In my mind, especially because AEW established it beforehand, all matches got to get cleared by Tony Khan. So unless they point out in some way, shape, or form that Tony Khan got in the referee's ear and said, okay, sanction this match, or knew Chris Statlander was going to go out there, all of these things, it was just, oof. And yeah, maybe that's why she's taking a break. No. I think she's just slated to take some time off. She's got other projects going on, things like that, and she's just been champion for 500 days, kind of nonstop. Yeah, she's had a few weeks off here and there, but I think the intent is to have her take some extended time off and then her come back with a personality shift. So she'll probably be coming back as a babyface. And after that entrance last night, as well as the few times she celebrated with her kid, it's hard to not see her as a babyface, you know? But yeah. I heard Double or Nothing was mid yesterday. Yeah, I see some people saying that. I don't get it. There was definitely some decisions. There was definitely a few bumps in the road for sure. It was not. I will even go as far as to say it was not one of AEW's top 5 pay-per-views of all time. But the thing that I wanted to, that the thing, my opinion is like, there's no such thing as like a bad AEW pay-per-view. Mid, maybe. I don't think yesterday's was it though. Like I think All Out 2020 when I think mid. Tiffany Stratton for me is like just really. Well, Austin, you don't know how Jesse feels about Chris. That's kind of an empty comparison to make there, fam. I don't think you got the issues with Chris that Jesse does. Well, the issues with Tiffany that Jesse does with Chris. But again, not trying to talk about somebody else's business like that. Like a DQ to an unsanctioned match for me. A DQ? There's DQ, my guy, you were misinformed. You probably should have hung out and watched the show with us yesterday. It was a ref stoppage because the whole point of the referee is to call for a pinfall or submission. A TKO is a form of a submission, and a TKO is a technical knockout. And when you're literally hammer fisting somebody in the face and they fall limp, I'm sorry. There's no official of that, whether or not they are AEW's official or whatever. They're not going to sit there and let that continue to happen, you know? So I think that works. Hey, Zoe. Hello. Welcome. How are you doing? We're still here in the opening chatter right now. We just discussed Jade Cargill taking some time off and the questionable booking around the Statlander decision. I get that, Tiffany. Okay, well, then there you go, Austin. Jesse's gripe with Chris Statlander has nothing to do with her character. You know, so that was a weird comparison. Like Tiffany's character. Yeah, I get that. The rich daddy's girl character. They moved away from the daddy girl element, which I appreciate that. That was a little weird in some instances, but she's just like that rich spoiled brat mentality. I kind of get it. She can very much be this generation's Charlotte. I just hope that she's not booked as one-dimensionally as Charlotte was, especially when she gets up to the main roster. Also, what I was pointing out with her, like how telegraphed the finish to her match was, I think she needs to work on that a bit. She doesn't need to hit that rolling senton bomb every single time before she goes for that moonsault. It's like the whole sequence is the finisher, not just the moonsault part. How you doing, Zoe? Are you able to catch up on any of the wrestling that happened this weekend? I know you went to sleep last night during Double or Nothing. You cannot stand Tiffany's character. There we go. That's great. That's great. Also, I didn't ask before at the top of the show, but do leave a thumbs up on this video if you haven't already. It's a very easy thing to do. It's just a click of a button. There's no limit to it or cost or anything, but it does help the channel out if you do it. Shows you care. Not say you don't if you don't thumbs up. I mean, you know what I mean. I just think she's not entirely ready for the belt yet. The thing about NXT is they've really committed to it being a developmental program. So like, it can, even championship runs are developmental runs, you know what I mean? So in that regard, I get it, but it does feel a little early. And she didn't even really seem like that moved that she wanted either. She was very much like a I told you so kind of thing. That's a bizarre comparison, Austin. AJ Lee's like the anti-diva in a way. Well, that was Paige's stick, Soraya's stick. But she is like very non-diva-esque. She was very like girl next door in that regard. I was rooting for Quarter the whole. Really, Cora Jade? Huh? I don't know. Cora Jade's in the same ballpark for me. I don't see her. Like I think she still needs to improve because I see her in the ring sometimes and she looks very like she doesn't have the ring awareness quite there yet, you know? I personally wish that her and Roxanne actually got a run with those tag titles. I saw you at the extra Double or Nothing yesterday. Happy Memorial Day, Hassan. Thank you. I appreciate you stopping by for all the streams this weekend, even if it was only for a little bit. Hope you enjoyed the shows, by the way. It was quite the weekend of wrestling, that's for true. Yeah, so. See, for me, what you just said is how I feel. Like, no, I get you. Tiffany still has some things to work out herself. Like I mentioned, her moves, her matches feel a little too telegraphed. Like I feel like I can tell what she's going to do next before she even sets up to do it. You know, I saw, like I mentioned earlier, I saw another podcaster point out when she goes up for that Kenton bomb, you know the finish is imminent, and then sure enough, 15 seconds later, the match is over because she hits the Kenton bomb, then the prettiest moonsault, and that's great. I'm sorry if I'm not typing. No, you're good, Austin. It's fine. I appreciate anybody who's sitting around lurking. You know, just because this is a platform for conversation doesn't necessarily mean you have to partake in it if you don't want to. But I do appreciate you hanging out, listening in. But yeah, there's quite a few people in NXT that need that, and that works to an extent because they've really committed to NXT being their developmental platform. You know, a few years ago they couldn't really make up their mind. They wanted it to be developmental while also being a third brand, and even before that, they wanted to commit to the third brand shtick, but Vince didn't want to look at it as such or treat it as such outside of the one storyline around Survivor Series that was spawned out of flight issues. So it's NXT has always kind of been plagued by this identity crisis that whoever's in charge of it at the time puts it through. And it's finally settling back in like it was in like 2015, 2016 when it was like even 2017 and 2018 when it was out and out what it intended on being. And now it's finally getting to that. And what it's intending on being now is fully a developmental program, not so much a feeder league to transition indie stars into main roster stars like it was doing before. It's now just simply we are developing people from the ground up. And that's where you see people like Tiffany and even Cora in some instances. You know what? The more I think about it, I think Cora's got it a little bit more going for her in ring than Tiffany does. It's the promos that always get me. Mainly because Cora doesn't feel like mean girl. Cora doesn't feel like heel. Cora feels like she should be a baby face, but like one with an attitude, you know? Not as she shouldn't be plucky, upright baby face. Like I think she should be a cross of what her character is now and what it was before the heel turn. I started watching wrestling in 2007. I came in shortly after WrestleMania 23. My friend, my cousin actually, came over and he was a big wrestling fan. He wanted to watch SmackDown that night. And that night it was Undertaker versus Batista for the World Heavyweight title in a steel cage match. And I was like, ooh. As I saw Undertaker's entrance, and I was like, what's this? And then my mom was like, because I was 12 at the time, my mom was like, oh, I don't want you watching that stuff, because that was also literally like right after the Chris Benoit incident. So she didn't want me anywhere near wrestling because of all of that. So eventually, because my cousin kept exposing me to wrestling, later on that year, around No Mercy, when Undertaker returned from his injury that year, is when I was permitted to watch it a little bit more regularly with like supervision. And eventually my mother got to see, oh, this isn't gonna be harmful, so she just gave up on supervising, and I was just free to watch it as I pleased by 2008. But yeah, I was an avid pro wrestling, an avid WWE fan all the way up until like 2010ish, and then I really started to fall off for a bit. The Punk pipe bomb stuff brought me back in because it's like, what's going on with all of this? And I petered in and out throughout 2011, depending on the booking of that. In 2012, really started to commit to it more because at that point I discovered coverage, online coverage, so I could go through it, because at that point I got my first job, and I couldn't watch it as religiously, so I kept up with it through coverage, and then through coverage I eventually discovered wrestling news, and I was usually a big critic of wrestling news, because I'm like, oh, this isn't true, this is stuff that people are making up. But then after a while it kept being true, and I'm like, man, I hate this stuff, it keeps spoiling it. But then it started becoming intriguing, because like there's all these things going on that I don't know about, and the stuff about contracts, these people floating, and these people might come from this place to this place, and it created a whole new layer of interest for me in wrestling. But by like 2016, 2017, I was a very cynical pro wrestling fan, and it wasn't until AEW came around in 2019, which I was also initially very critical of, and it then won me over with Double or Nothing 2019. I was like, this is what I want in wrestling, and I've really kind of become the wrestling fan that I am now that you see today because of that. Sorry for the tangent, but I really like answering that question. It's an interesting journey. But to kind of reel that all back in, get back on track with what we were talking about in terms of like NXT Battleground, I do think that, oh yes, now I know where I was going with that developmental spiel, is that they've determined that they want to be this developmental program, and they even have Level Up to be like the Sunday Night Heat to their developmental program. But even then, you have people literally wrestling their first, second, third matches in front of a national televised audience, or a national platform, you know, like in the form of Peacock rather. So it's things like that that really, it really puts a lot of these people under unnecessary stress, particularly the ladies, especially because they've been getting injured a lot lately, and rumors have it that that's due to the intense training regimens that they're being put under the Performance Center. But that wouldn't really excuse all of the injuries outside of WWE. So it's really an interesting situation with NXT. I think that they really should make sure people are a little bit more ring ready before they put them on TV. I know that's for sure. You're talking like Excalibur. It's funny that you do that, because when I first started watching AEW in 2019, I had a friend who compared me to Excalibur, because I always have all the little bits of trivial knowledge, and I know the names of all the things, and I can talk really fast while putting all this stuff out there. And that was kind of my concern with podcasting, right? When I get in here and do that, because not only do I flub my words sometimes in the process, or even mix up my thoughts, cross wires, whatnot, it's not everybody's flavor. People prefer a more paced conversation. They prefer you to, deliver your words a little bit more deliberately. And that's just not me. I don't have the patience for that. My mind moves way too fast. Especially when I get going like that, when I know exactly what I'm trying to say, I just take off. I only know some things in the pay-per-view that I was thinking. It was Matt, actually, who super kicked Mox in the face and exploded. Yes, that is the thumbnail for my Double or Nothing watch-along. Shout out to AEW's photography team for getting a much better picture of that than I could. What am I planning for Memorial Day? Admittedly, nothing really. I feel bad that like upsets anybody or anything. But yeah, I've never really had much. I've never really celebrated Memorial Day like that. This is kind of it, really. My plan. I took the day off, coincidentally, because I knew Double or Nothing was going to have me up to ungodly hours of the night, and I wasn't going to try and work a shift at my day job today. So I'm thinking I'm going to try and make this a ritual, is move Gablash from Saturdays over to Mondays on the weeks of pay-per-views. Or maybe even just do a bonus edition, depending on how things play out. I don't know. I'm also on caffeine, so that may be another reason why I'm like speeding through my words here. So I clarified what I was saying about yes, I feel like NXT has been really, they've been getting better at having an identity, but they need to peel back on putting people out there so early in their careers and putting them in the position of having to develop in front of an audience, instead of having like being a certain degree of finished product before going out to television. Because then you have situations like, Green Champions. And not for nothing, you look over to the other side of things, and we just finally dethroned a Green Champion. And I guess I can't really say Jade's green anymore. She's been wrestling for over 2 years, and she has been improving before our very eyes. But when you go look at those first 10 Jade matches, they were rough. They were rough at some points. They were. And that's not to say that she didn't develop at an alarming rate, but still could have stood to do some practice matches in front of a 20-person audience that was never seen by the camera. You know, things like that would have been so beneficial to her. And maybe that is something they did. Maybe that is something they already did. I can only speak to what I know, not to what I don't. But it's just one of those things, you know. Hindsight's 20/20. You look at it and it feels like it could have been done better. But yeah, she's gonna be taking some time off. She'll probably return as a babyface, and you know, it's gonna be a very interesting thing for AEW to have. Such an unstoppable babyface on the women's side of things, you know. The last time we had that in AEW, not even like in general, I guess we still do in a way, but he's taken a few now, is Mox. Mox has only lost like clean twice, maybe 3 times in AEW history. He's lost a few more times than that, but I'm saying clean, decisively, definitively, because the psychology of the match showed you that his opponent was better than him in the form of CM Punk at All Out 2022, in the form of Hangman in the Texas Death Match at Revolution 2023, where he tapped out. In fact, I would say that was probably his cleanest loss, despite the fact there was so much blood. Battleground, I don't know. People who like NXT probably really liked Battlegrounds. Like I said earlier, I couldn't focus on it. I couldn't just sit there and watch it by itself. And that was fast forwarding to the back. I was playing Halo while I was watching it. And to admittedly, I wasn't doing very well at Halo because I was trying to stay focused on the wrestling. But yeah, literally a green champion. Yeah, Austin, right? Also, double check, see if you're all the way caught up. That's a little bit of delayed response there. Maybe, oh yeah, you did say you were doing other things. Yeah, Battleground, it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I say it was exactly what it set out to be. But there was nothing like newsworthy or noteworthy that came out of the show. You know, we found out that this Tuesday we'll find out who's the masked attacker in the women's division. That's neat, I suppose. And of course, we got the weaponized steel cage match between Jacy Jane and Gigi Dolan. And we have a new NXT Women's Champion, which we assured we were going to have. But aside from that, like nothing noteworthy happened. Nobody came out after Carmelo's match to face him or anything like that. He just beat Braun again. Oh, gross. I hope not. She's seemingly done like nothing to make up for all that shit. No, I'm good. I'm already like iffy on Blair Davenport popping up. Formerly known as Bea Priestley. But I deal with Will Ospreay on AEW when he comes around, so I guess I can't be too picky, right? Hell, I even popped through his matches. It's a damning situation. Pro wrestling is really rough in that regard. Yeah, back around. Now over to Night of Champions, because we haven't really talked about that much. Speaking of, you know, foregone conclusions and crowning new champions, Seth Rollins was finally given the world title reign that he should have had in the last 2 years, to be honest. I still remember people feeling like he should have won at Royal Rumble 2022. Yes, I did, Austin. I mean, I saw it right with my very eyes on the show. I was like, that is towing a line, and dangerously so. So, I don't know why they had to do that. Ew. Did I lag? Okay. I lagged there for a second. All lives matter. Well, good for you, man. Wanna probably look into why that's not the best. I'm not gonna get into all of that though. Talking wrestling at the moment. Oh yes, Night of Champions. So Seth Rollins finally get this world title started, and we talked last week what we're going to do with that world championship run. How are we going to legitimize it? You know, what's going to be the plan, creative plans going into it? And I see this being floated a lot as a Drew McIntyre return and heel turn. to challenge for the belt. And in my head, now yes, that's a very WB thing to do, and like it would not surprise me in the slightest if they did it. But I feel like to just bring him back after the last time we saw him was losing an intercontinental title match, and to have him challenge right for the world heavyweight title that you're trying to establish is bigger. No, you're good, Austin. It's just all lives matter is kind of like it's yeah. I don't need to get into all of that. I mean, yeah, I would just say look, Google that or something. Um, keep losing my train of thought. Sorry. So yeah, Seth Rollins. I'm not sure where he's going to be going with the title. I'm not sure where we're going to be going with this title because if it is challenging Drew McIntyre, who just lost for the Intercontinental title, it doesn't look like this championship is above the Intercontinental title. It looks like it's lateral to it, and you need to establish that it's not. We need to have. I feel like you need to have another person who hasn't been beaten by Roman or Gunther to challenge for that belt. Really, somebody who hasn't challenged for a championship and hasn't and lost recently. Sorry, total brain fart there. Now, if it were to be like somebody like Bronson Reed, like he just challenged for the U.S. title, that's where my issue lies in that, someone like AJ Styles, he didn't face Roman recently, and so he was a good contender. I want to say Edge, but he's on the other brand, also faced Roman. There's really not many people who fit that category, to be honest. So I think they're going to have a hard time really establishing this belt. They're going to have to work really hard to make this belt feel more important in some regard than Gunther's title. Because Gunther has been champion for like 300 days now with his own belt, defending it vigorously in awesome title defense after awesome title defense. So you don't want it to be somebody who he's lost to the challenge for that. Drew McIntyre is a legit guy, right? So I think Drew McIntyre is the type of person at any point in time you could drop in a world title feud and he fits. But I feel like that needs to be established better. There's something needs to turn up. Something needs to show us that he is greater and more dangerous than he was in that feud with Gunther and Sheamus. Would he do so by like running in and attacking the Brawling Brutes, maybe? Do you think is going to be the next challenger for Statlander's title? Back over to the AEW side of things. Who would challenge Statlander for the title first? Actually. Like, are you saying like first program or first challenger? Because I feel like she's going to have a few throwaway matches for that title. I'm pretty sure she'll defend that title this Wednesday on Dynamite against a Bunny or something, or Penelope Ford. Something like that. I see her doing. No, I get what you're saying, Austin. It's inherent. Yeah, I'm just, again, man, not trying to get into it here on this stream. Look. So yeah, Statlander will probably get a couple of defenses over like a Penelope, over a Bunny, maybe like Red Velvet. But I don't see her having like her first real program. Would not be surprised if it's Jade again. I could see it being maybe Taya. Sky Blue, perhaps, but she looks like she's hanging out more on Ring of Honor now at the moment, and not for nothing with how made she is after her match against Athena. I don't think that it's the best idea to put her in another title program to lose, at least so soon. Not saying that she should win the next title she challenges for, but yeah. Returning Brandy Rhodes, yes, the one who got on Twitter and was like, "Oh yeah, y'all said we should have never left the other place. Look at us now," kind of thing. So yeah, so from one long title reign ending to another, I want to move over really quick to the whole Bianca Belair situation. I gotta say, my match of the night at Night of Champions was Bianca Belair versus Asuka, because on top of being a great match, it had an incredibly creative finish. I had Bianca winning, and honestly, I kind of thought that she should have won just because Asuka didn't beat her at WrestleMania. She got her fair shot, and then it didn't happen. But it worked out the way it did, and I wasn't mad about it when it happens. So, and Asuka's like a champion because she won. This feels like her most definitive title win yet on the main roster. So I hope to see them do something special with Asuka here. I hope she has a decent run, one that isn't like secondary to another women's program on the card. And now it makes me wonder, now that she's won the title and you don't have to worry about destroying like an amazing reign that lasted over a year, probably getting a belt swap. Champion versus champion, Athena versus Chris. That would be interesting because they were buddy up against Cargill and the baddies before Statlander got injured. And there was some slight tension there, and now Athena's heel. But you see, the thing is, I don't want that happening because they'll probably have Statlander win, and I would most definitely want Athena to wreck her shit. That's not even like a personal thing. I just really love Athena. I love her act. It's very special. Things like that don't happen on purpose. In fact, her character did kind of happen on accident with the whole match with Jody Threat in Canada at one time. But yeah. Bianca Belair's title win was getting stale. It was to a degree because they weren't trying to find interesting stories to keep involved in it. She was stuck up in the Damage Control War Game storyline for like 3 months, and that really stagnated the title reign. And then after that, to get into that program with Alexa, that didn't really work out. And then from there, it's just kind of been bumpy road all along the way. It was time. It was time. And not for nothing, I'm glad that she got that statistic in the meantime, because Bianca Belair is an incredible talent. She's a generational woman's talent, really a generational talent in general. So I think that it's something that is going to be good for all people involved. Bianca can freshen up, and she'll be champion again before long. That's the thing. Bianca, and not for nothing, she should be. I want to see Bianca Belair retiring like a multiple-time women's champion, being one of the most decorated to ever do it, because she's that damn good. But not to say that her title reign was getting stale, and the division could have used that shakeup that it got. And it was said not too long ago, Fightful Select, podcasters, people of all kinds, backstage, really the general vibe across the industry is that the American women's scene was going to be changing drastically. And based on all the title changes that happened, people returning, people stepping away, people getting injured, and people healing up, it has definitely shaken up. When you have things like Willow beating Mercedes Moné to become the first ever New Japan Strong Women's Champion, that's epic. When you have legendary title reigns like Jade Cargill's and Bianca Belair's coming to an end, that's really good. Not just for the industry currently, but for the history of the industry, for the history of women's wrestling specifically here in the West. So, now, back to what I said. Asuka. Let's see this title reign become interesting. Who's going to be the next babyface that'll step up to her? Who's going to try and get in her way? And is it going to be an interesting program? Because realistically, I'd like that. But who is a babyface on the I guess the SmackDown? That's right. I'm thinking of the Raw Women's division because she's the Raw Women's Champion, but she's on SmackDown defending against SmackDown's. I really hope they don't do this belt trade. Please rename them. Name one the Women's World Championship. Name the other the Women's Universal Championship, like the Women's Welterweight Championship. Give them their own identities that aren't brand specific. Just ask the question, Austin. No need to declare you got a question. iPhone or Samsung? Specifically out of those two, because I'm Android. Is Samsung Android? Or is that like its own third brand? Because out of those two, I'd probably go Samsung. I'm not an eye guy. For one, I'm not about to let it completely take over my life and having to spend $2,000 and having a mobile device and all of its accessories. But also, I've never needed it, There's like a few things that would be cool to have, but I don't need that. Now over to the other side of the women's title scene. Samsung is Android for you? Huh. Oh, okay. I'm not sure if they're actually the same thing or if they're completely two different entities, but regardless, yeah. I go Android, then Samsung, then iPhone. back to rest. What cup is it? What cup is that? Oh, this isn't a cup. It's an energy drink. I can show the logo. Say, you gotta sponsor me for that shit. Although you can probably tell if you know the can. Lost my train of thought again. I'm trying to stay focused. I do apologize. That is the downfall of this show. I do think I need to refine the show's format a bit so as to not get so distracted like this. But yeah, I really want to see face Asuka for the title. That is right. She's on SmackDown right now. That's a great shout, Chris. Thank you. That's what I was trying to think was the SmackDown women's division. Io Sky and Bayley are currently in it. You could have Damage Control split up. That feud be built off of it to elevate Io. We could pull in a feeder babyface for Asuka to chew up and spit out. And yeah, that would be great. I think that's a good way to lead us up to SummerSlam. We could have Io versus Asuka at SummerSlam. Oh, that'd be great. It's been almost a year in the making, honestly. Ever since that promo off in Japanese, I've been ready to see those two slug it out. Rhea and Natalya, hilarious. I loved that match simply because of how it ended and the post-match stuff. That's why it's in the thumbnail. Okay, Rhea holding Dom while leaning over a fallen Natty, pointing and laughing. Nah, that was hilarious. I'm sorry, just the like it was so. That was great heel shit right there. I loved it. So yeah, as for Rhea, Rashid, because I feel like what they want to do is after this extended Trish Becky program, because Shirley's going to go to SummerSlam, we're going to get that Rhea Becky program that was teased back around Royal Rumble. And I'm ready for that. I'm so ready for Becky and Rhea. If that is like the feud going into Survivor Series, that would be phenomenal. But I get the impression they're going to try and milk that all the way until Mania 40. And I hope they don't. They don't need to wait until Mania to do that match and it be special. And nothing says that they can't have a rematch at the show later on down the line that is motivated by something else that happens in the story and or even the first match. Speaking of Trish and Becky, I gotta say Trish did fantastic in her match. It was so awesome to see her out there and hanging so well. And like, people will be like, well, duh, she did so well with Charlotte. That was also 4 years ago. And in your 40s, 4 years can make a lot of difference. So for Trish to still go out there and compete at that level, first singles match in 4 years, that was epic. I don't know about that, Chris. I don't know about that. Maybe down the line. I want to see Asuka have a lengthier run than that. I want to see Asuka hold that title until the fall. If I'm honest. Io could beat her for it. That's not me saying she shouldn't. But I think that Asuka needs it. I don't want to look so far past things, I think wrestling fans, particularly once they get caught up in the booking of things, it's very easy for them to fall in the trap of all right, what's next? And then what's after that? And then what's after that? And then before you know it, you're looking at the year-end booking for the following year. And there's so much to go through with that. You have 2 to 3 weekly programs just for the one company. That's 150 shows in between manias. When you put it like that, all of a sudden, you're really glossing over a lot of things. But then again, I wouldn't put it past WWE. There have been times where it felt like they just went into universe mode, scrolled down 3 months, and then clicked simulate up until this show. And we just have to watch that booking play out week by week. Because that's really the vibe it was giving me in like 2018 to 2021. 2022, they really tried shifting it up a little bit, namely once Triple H took over the pen, once he got the book. Pencil, not pen. But yeah. After they dumped their food. Oh, interesting. I'm so mad about Braun Breaker losing. Really? I don't know. I didn't want to see Braun Breaker win, to be honest. For him to lose that title, turn heel, and then win it back 5 weeks later, why Dolph Ziggler, Carmelo Hayes like that? You know, I feel like he got something special with Carmelo. He's got to have a decent run. He's, especially seeing as he turned babyface effectively right after winning the title in heel fashion. This match, after it played out, it showed me that it was the sole purpose of this match was to show us that Carmelo can beat Braun clean, because they knew that the smart fans were not letting go of the fact that Carmelo got help from Trick to win the title. So when you put that in perspective, all of a sudden, Braun isn't that much of a heel for turning on him because he's pissed that his title was effectively stolen from him, you know? But now he's lost fair and square, so there's that. Especially after he went all, like, whiny over it, when he got all whiny about it. Because that's pretty much what they tried to do, right? They try to take the babyface, turn them heel unnecessarily, and then they try to give us all these reasons to dislike them when they should just let us decide whether or not we like somebody, and then base how they book them off of that. And what else happened on NXT that was of note? I remember I saw it singing me like, "Ooh, I'm gonna watch it." Oh yeah, the overbooking of the tag title match. Just call up the Creeds. We don't need to do all of this. Just bring the Creeds up to the main roster. They can help fill out one of those tag divisions. I suppose. And yeah, the dynamic is a little off with the babyface having the corner person and the heel being alone. But that also started it off with a reverse dynamic, you know? And I think in this situation where Braun turns heel by going, I don't need any of you people to be cheering me or rooting me on or barking for me, to then turn around and be like, but I do need this guy in my corner because you got that guy in your corner, would kind of just undermine his heel turn in a certain way. That is true. Gigi Dolan and Jason Jane are going to have that steel cage match this Sunday, and I think they're going to steal the show. Hex, Briar Clark here in the chats a lot. He gave the perspective after we watched NXT last Tuesday in the Discord that it's probably better that they have the show on television because now they don't have to worry about being overshadowed by anything else on the PLE. And yeah, the things on the PLE have to worry about that, but it was already 6 matches. One of them was a last man standing match. One was crowning a new women's champion. There were reasons to like fully invest in it, you know. Dolphin Robert. You see, Austin, that I don't know about that because not only is Dolph babyface right now and Rude out on injury, but the last time Dolph was in NXT, it was taking the title off of Braun and then dropping it back to him. Like 6 weeks later. So yeah, I don't know. I let's not turn Braun Breaker into NXT's Wardlow where he drops his title just to win it right back. You know? Because Wardlow's already a 3-time TNT champion. And I would not be surprised if he drops that title and wins it back to become a 4-time. Just to set that record. Just a quick call, y'all. Please do leave a thumbs up on this video if you haven't already. It helps us boost the algorithm, helps us get seen by more people so we can further expand the conversation, get more perspectives going. We had quite a busy week of wrestling. If you're interested in live reactions of any of that, the VODs are still up. You can go check out how I was freaking out about various things like Wardlow diving through the ladder and exploding super kick. You could also catch my reaction to Jimmy finally having enough. Jimmy Uso, that is. I'm going to see you, the mysterious hooded woman is attacked as well. Exactly, Chris. My money's on Blair Davenport or especially after it slipped through some of the voice modding they did in that package on Battleground, I think it may be Stevie Turner. They might be repackaging streamer Stevie Turner, which isn't a bad shout. Streamer Stevie Turner was extremely cringy. It felt like YouTube's advert version of a streamer when trying to advertise to streamers. He's turned heel. Now he has to have his evaluation. I know you probably meant evolution, but yeah. Mandy Rose, no. They're not going to bring her back. She's all over they probably won't ever bring her back. Except to maybe induct her into the Hall of Fame like 20 years from now when they have a light class that they want to fill out. Especially if she goes on to do other things in wrestling. But the thing about that is she's so set. She's so set. She can never come back to wrestling and make more money than she ever would have if she did. And like, kudos to her, you know? Like, why? If you're made, you're made, you know? At this point, she shouldn't wrestle unless she wants to. And not for nothing, isn't that what a lot of wrestlers want to do? They want to elevate their stock and eventually become bigger than wrestling. I mean, it's only ever happened a handful of times. Yeah, you know, Dwayne Johnson, Cena, Dave Bautista, sure. But that's the goal, theoretically. I don't know. Now, if you ask me personally, I would have just loved to be a good wrestler. But in the back of my mind, I would have wanted to be getting bigger too. So I just look at it from that perspective. I think Mandy Rose, and I forget what she's going by now. It's Mandy something. If she pops up in pro wrestling again, it's gonna be for Stardom, New Japan, or AEW. And or you know what? She could probably do an Impact deal. I think that would be really good for her. Yeah, I think it's Blair Davenport because she's been out for a long time. They haven't done anything with her, and like it'd be right there. Stevie Turner at least has the streamer thing you can just go back to and do more of if you wanted to do it. Anyways, but yeah, Braun being the next Randy, I don't know about that. Maybe Mr. comes for Tiff's title when she is having a celebration. I don't know. That's really weird. Tiffany is a heel. Tiffany was alluded to being the attacker, and I think it's clear that she is not for multiple reasons. One, it would be way too obvious because they addressed it directly in the storyline, and they usually do that when they're trying to address a possibility that they know they're not going with. And to have a heel tack a heel, that's because the way they're doing it is this heel has attacked like 3 or 4 women now, and 2 of them it was to write off a long-term injury in the form of Nikita Lyons and Sol Ruka. Sorry. I've been watching a lot of Going and Raw podcasts. They're a lot of fun. Very fun dad energy from those guys. But yeah, Sol Ruka and just said it. Nikita Lyons both right out, funny enough, by leg injuries. Back to the point I mentioned earlier. What is that little white thing? I'm sorry, I'm seeing one. I think that, okay. I'm seeing this little white thing right there. Okay, yeah, I thought it was a part of the graphic at first, but then I realized it was the light leaking through the window behind this wall. But yeah. And of course, it was Roxanne Perez last Tuesday. Although that was like the weakest attack and the most public one at that. Oh, I remember the Aleister Black who done it in NXT 2019. John, coming out the arena, bursting, looking around for Johnny Gargano, because it was him. That was such a wild story. Honestly, I loved that storyline. I low-key liked that storyline, and it ended up getting ruined because it was supposed to pay off with Johnny and Tommy having that match for the title. But they had to get called up to the main roster for a week to do some random let's feature NXT for ratings bullshit that Vince wanted to do. Had Ciampa and Johnny Gargano team, even though they very clearly had a program working against each other at the time. Had Ciampa work his babyface style, which had him doing dives and shit, and then he fucked up his neck during one of those dives. And I was... I know it's so far degree removed, but I firmly believe that Vince McMahon making them work that Monday Night Raw is why that story got ruined. That blowout got ruined, and we instead got Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano, where Johnny won the vacant title. And then Johnny just dropped into Adam 3 months later because that was very clearly the plan, but they had to give away their match earlier to try and make up for the fact that we weren't getting the big blow-off match we wanted. Ooh, heated. Heated I was. Of course, Well, yeah, yo. I think I've more or less said everything that I've wanted to say in regards to this weekend of wrestling. You know, Jade Cargill taking some time off, coming back as a babyface. Probably that's going to be a lot of fun. My opinion, HH is better than Vince. Oh, absolutely. I feel like the only people who think Vince is better than Triple H are the Vince guys, like Brock Lesnar. You know, maybe Roman, but I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to put that on anybody in particular, you know? Yeah, Jade Cargill, just take some time off, drop the title. We got Chris Statlander as champion now. Hopefully, they hold the momentum of this belt, which admittedly isn't the most because it was so stop and start, defended against primarily jobbers. Not jobbers, enhancement talents. And we also have a Night of Champions that set us up the new landscape for WWE. So maybe Monday Night Raw will look to be a bit more interesting with a world champion in the mix. You know, I'm optimistic. I hope they make that title mean something. And I also hope they stop calling Roman undisputed because he's not undisputed anymore. We're crowning new tag team champions tonight on Raw. Yeah, let's talk about Raw really quick. We're crowning new tag team champions tonight on Raw. I saw there's some possible spoilers for Raw tonight. Y'all looking for some possible spoilers? Because I actually had not looked into them. Okay, so in fact, it's great this, right? Because funny we bring up Tommy, good old Tommy Champs. He's in Albany this evening, the side of tonight's Raw. He's been recovering from hip surgery, which you know, he's something that has pestered him. And they like hip issues, I specify. Blair Davenport for the attacker. I'm thinking so too. But yeah. Apparently, Tiffany Stratton got an ovation backstage. That was. Um, sorry, double checking things. So I don't just like read it out loud. Okay. We might also be in line for a celebration segment tonight. So there y'all go. Um, Seeing as I'm using it so often nowadays, as I'm a relatively new subscriber myself, I've meant to do it for a long time now. Do subscribe to Fightful Select if you haven't already. If you're trying to stay in the throes of wrestling news, they also got a lot of extra content there. And I don't work for them or anything like that. It's actually kind of weird that I'm plugging their shit like this, but I use it so faithfully as of late that I can't help but not want to spread the love. They do great. They got like almost 10,000 subscribers at the moment, and they're the leading site in pro wrestling news, the most legitimate at that. You can count on one hand how many times one of their reports has been inaccurate. Like, that's how good they are. So if you got $5 that you aren't spending on a coffee or something, drop it on them. You can be in the loop like this too. But yeah, that has been everything that I've wanted to talk about. Thank y'all so much for coming by and hanging out with me on this special edition of Gablash. It should be returning to its normal time slot of Saturday, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. BST. So do swing by if you got your Saturday afternoon open. Do check out the VOD if you don't. Do check if you're watching the VOD now. Please do hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. I've mentioned like 4 times. You're probably going mad hearing it. Make sure that button's pressed, gosh darn it. And do check out the other things we got going on this week. We got the AEW Dynamite Watchalong, as always, this normal time slot. We got Rampage Watchalongs, no matter what the time is. Your boy here is the best at Find the Rampage. I will find it. I will watch it live. And no matter the detriment to my schedule. And of course, when Collision comes around, you best believe that I'll be watching that live too for some live reactions. Now, what we'll do with Gablash at that point, I'm not sure if I want to do those 2 streams in the same day. Gablash might move to Tuesdays at that point. And word down the grapevine is might be having a 2K23 MyGM mode on the way on Sundays when there isn't pay-per-views. Don't hold me to that, though, because if the game doesn't want to host a draft properly, then I guess we can't stick to that. But do check that out if you haven't. Do check out some of the flurry content we have as well in the backlog. Do join the Discord if you haven't already. We do Discord exclusive watch parties of throwback and retro content all the time. Sometimes we'll do watch parties for NXT, and even some of the PLEs are on delay or something. We'll do watch parties for other wrestling like GCW, Ring of Honor, and Stardom or New Japan. Ring of Honor specifically, there is a live watch party hosted every Thursday at its normal premiere time. By our own, that Cameron Zebra, one of our enforcers here. But that's been enough plugs for me. Thank y'all so much for enduring. Thank you for hanging out with me. Do see y'all around. Catch it for Dynamite. Happy wrestling, y'all.